What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this one, working on the YZF-R1 2007-2008, and we are going to be heat wrapping the exhaust and getting rid of the servo motor or EXUP system in the exhaust system.
Perfect.
Alright, so first up, we have some heat wrap. Probably one of the cheapest and best modifications you can do to your bike, especially if you daily ride it. So I'm currently riding my bike every day to work, rain or shine, and start and stop traffic, it gets really hot. It gets hot. The cooling system is getting hot. It's really getting worked. We're getting up to like 112, 113 degrees in stopped traffic. No airflow, fans are kicking on, they are moving some air, but it's still not quite enough. And this is definitely going to help a lot. Now I've gone and gotten some temperature readings. I rode to work, rode home. When I got home, got out the thermal gun and took some readings, and they look like this. Alright, so you can see I just got home from work and the bike's fans are turned on. We sat in a bit of traffic. Hopefully you guys can see that. That's 103 degrees with the fans turning on and off. So, let's have a look here on our headers. So we've got our little guy here, thermometer. It's a laser jobby. You can see it's about 33 degrees ambient. Concrete's a bit hotter, and then bottom of the radiator, it's about 100 degrees. We go to our headers. Right in front of the radiator is 230 degrees. That bank is a bit cooler. That bank is a little bit cooler again. And same with that one. So it's about 200 degrees at the bottom of the header where it's closest to the radiator. And obviously all the way up, it's probably going to get hotter closer to the actual motor. 140, 50, 70, 250. Yeah, wow. It's nearly 300 degrees the further we go up. But right there, 250, 260. So you can see we definitely need some kind of heat management there. And we'll compare them directly to after we have wrapped it with this. Now this is the titanium heat wrap. It's actually just like a Basalt wrap. You wrap your headers and mid pipe and all of that, and it should keep a lot of the heat in and away from the radiator. Now that is the main reason we're wrapping it, because in the R1 especially, the headers run really close to the bottom of the radiator, and thus, well, it gets bloody hot in stop-start traffic. So we'll have a closer look. Alright, so here she is. Now, if we tuck up under here, you can see we've got our headers and our radiator, and there's literally one finger's gap between the runners and the radiator. A little bit better over here. And obviously when you are moving and you've got the airflow, the air is coming past, moving and pushing the air backwards. So the hot radiator isn't really getting directly affected by the headers. Now when you come to a standstill, especially if you've been kind of given it some, these bad boys are going to be pretty bloody hot. 280 something odd degrees plus kind of hot. And yeah, heating up your radiator right from the back of it. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll wrap these, and that should keep some of the heat in. And now, secondly, what we'll be doing, probably the second cheapest and best modification you can do for these bikes, is this little guy here. So this is a EXUP Eliminator. It's a Servo Delete, well, unit, I guess. So what we have in these bikes is a little motor, which is this guy here. That is the butterfly valve. And just in here, you can see this big old unit sitting right there. Now that opens and closes the butterfly valve, changes torque output, emissions, and everything that I mentioned before. And we're going to be deleting that because it's an old system. It's a 2008 bike. Some bikes will be older with it, some newer. And it's not working, essentially. Well, quite literally. So we have the common code of should come up. There you go, code 18. And that is, yeah, essentially the servo's cooked, and it will keep your check engine light on, which is, well, it's not ideal if you have another problem with the bike and you've got code 18, say, like I do, you have another problem with the bike that's detrimental, and because your engine check light's on all the time anyway, you don't stop, you don't pull over, you don't do anything about it. Can be pretty catastrophic, so yeah, we're just going to get rid of it. Alright, so first up are the fairings. We're going to get these bad boys off and have a closer look at the exhaust and how we're going to kind of tackle that and get that bad boy off. And that's the fairings off. You can see in here, a bit of a clearer view. Now you can see how close it gets to the bottom of the radiator. Obviously it's a aluminium radiator, so there's no real issue with plastics and stuff breaking and fraying and cracking. Now one of the key things to note here is that it's actually a titanium heater as well, which is fantastic for dispersing thermal energy, i.e. it radiates heat really well, it conducts and gets rid of heat really efficiently. The problem being, obviously, in traffic, these bigger liter bikes, or this particular liter bike, doesn't so much like it. So, yeah, we are going to have to resolve that. Obviously, wrap the headers all the way down. Yeah. And moving on down through the exhaust, you can see the somewhat complicated looking servo system here. So we've got our little motor. This guy moves these cables backwards and forwards. These are quite stiff, actually, I noticed. I have adjusted them quite a few times since owning the bike, and I'm not sure why it's just randomly stopped working now, but I'm guessing that butterfly valve is probably stuck. So let's get this cover off and see if we can't move these by hand. Alright, so it looks like we can move it by hand. It is very stiff, but I'm presuming that's because it's got a motor attached to it. Let's chuck the ignition on, and we'll see what it does when it engages. Alright, so it's tried to pull this one, but it can't. I wonder why not. Anyway, looks like the servo motor itself is actually still working, because you saw, let's go through that again. See this one? Ah, interesting. So it's got tension on it now. Well, when it's trying to run through its cycle, it loses tension. Anyway, we'll get rid of this whole setup, pull her out in the bin. Now, I'm going to presume that that's closed. Right there. What what we're going to do is a little bit of a sound comparison operating the valve by hand. Alright, let's see what she does. I'm gonna put you guys back here. Hopefully the audio is alright. Alright, so not a heck of a lot of difference that I can hear from in the garage. And all we were doing is the last one was open and that's closed. So we'll pull the system out and see how much restriction it actually provides in there. I do have a decat pipe, so the main thing is that I don't have a cat in there. You'd probably get more of a difference if you've still got a cat and you stock mufflers and stuff. But yeah, let's get this bad boy out to see what it looks like. Now we got our torch, and you can see where it splits across the two. Runs in, and it's not exactly a huge restriction. There's obviously enough flow for it to just make it past the actual butterfly. I'll try and hold it, but it's hot as crap. Someone was just limiter bashing it. So yeah, I guess the restriction is a restriction. Turn it up that way. Kind of see, yeah, okay, that does actually fill in quite a lot of that. So yeah, if you've got a defective one of those, and it is stuck closed, you're probably going to find your top end performance is definitely going to be suffering. Now, the easiest way for me to get rid of this whole system is we're going to pull this motor out, which is probably a little bit of weight to it too. We're going to find a plug for it and put that off to the side, and we're just going to make a blank plate out of stainless steel for this guy. So 4 holes, some stainless. Probably reuse that gasket with some exhaust sealant on there. Will be the best option. We'll reuse that. It's a metal gasket, so it's good. That's all cleaned up. That way we don't have this big ugly thing on there. There'll be a little knob on the other side, but we don't want to overcomplicate things, so that'll do for now. Yeah, let's get this motor off. Alrighty. That is it. I mean, it's a little bit of weight. Nothing too crazy though. And I guess all together, minus the gasket, that might weigh a little bit, which obviously on a motorcycle means quite a lot. Pretty simple. You got 2 12mm, well, bolt and nut. So they just sit on the inside of the fairings. Just in there, so I got to get those guys off, and that's why it essentially holds the whole bloody thing on. And the second is these little clamps here, and I've got mine tucked up on the inside. Most will have them facing the other way, so the nuts on the outside, but I think that looks tidier. So we'll grab those bad boys off too, and that'll be our mufflers removed. Okay, so our mufflers are off, nice and easy, the 4 bolts like I said. Next up, we're going to start up the back with the mid pipe here, we will take our rear set off this side. It just makes access a lot easier. Usually you'd have your cat there, so you might want to wrap it, you might not, depending on your setup. Same with your O2, so mine's down here. This is for the auto tune, and we have a plug just sitting in there, so I'll just unplug that and let the cable hang down. We have a mounting bolt here. We also have a clamp and then another mounting bolt up there. Pretty straightforward. We'll just pull all of that off. Mid pipe should slide off nice and easy, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now our mid pipe is off. We can pretty much start just pulling off these Allen bolts up in here for the bit of a flip around for the headers. So they'll come off next. There's no other mounting points or anything like that, just straight on the side of the head. And you can see here, this is my coolant overflow, and this is where it comes out. And on some days it's actually getting hot enough, you can see the white kind of discolored drip marks. So that usually sits down there, drips down, and every now and then I can smell it as well. So she's getting pretty hot, and yeah, preventative maintenance, boys. And for a closer look up here, that's how close it gets to the sump, and you can imagine she gets pretty toasty, and sitting right under the motor heating everything up is not ideal in these really toasty Australian conditions. So yeah, let's get the final part of the headers off. Headers are off. That is pretty straightforward, really. Wasn't overly complicated, few nuts and bolts. It's really just kind of grunt work, nothing really technical there. Now with this off, let's have a look, a bit of a closer look in here. So that's the kind of setup. It divides the two runners either side. That little guy in there probably gives the butterflies down there some support in the actual exhaust, so it doesn't flop around in there. Now I do want to wrap around this guy, so I need to make the plate for him first. That'll give us some time for the sealant to kind of cure as well while we are wrapping it. And I'm going to make that out of stainless. I'll get the gasket, put it on a piece of stainless sheet, cut up the grinder, clean it up on the wheel over there, and we'll goop it up, slap it on, and then move on from that point, I guess. Done. Now that's just a simple piece of maybe 1.2 mil, maybe 1 mil stainless plate. We got our OEM gasket behind it. We use some Permatex gasket maker, and that's it. That's pretty much that whole section done. Now I guess if you guys were not wrapping your exhaust, you could probably leave the whole thing on. Well, no, you literally could. You could leave the whole thing on and say you're just doing the EXUP Delete, make up the plate, cover her up, get rid of all of this stuff here, all this nastiness, and all it is, you can jump on eBay, multiple sites sell it, most good bike stores sell it too, is this little EXUP or exhaust servo delete plug. And essentially all that does is it tells the ECU that yep, something is happening, don't worry about the EXUP. So well, if we have a look, turn on the ignition, no check engine light this time, boys. But what we are doing is now we are going to wrap this bad boy. So I'm going to dunk this in a bucket of water. This is the wrap, obviously. That just means it's a lot more pliable, it's easy to use, it reduces the amount of dust that comes off this guy here. So there's a lot of little shards of glass and whatnot in there, and they get pretty itchy. So chuck that in some water, and that will soften it up, make it easier to wrap around this guy too. Then we're going to start on the headers and work our way back. So yeah, let's get into that. I don't know. Alright, so the mid pipe is now wrapped. went ahead and went around it with the wiring too, as you can see there. It's kind of like tied all together. We got a couple of hose clamps to tie it down a little bit tighter at each end as well. So these are, looks like a 40mm to a 64mm hose clamp. That's just to kind of just bind it and hold it a lot tighter than any of the other bits and pieces that are on there holding it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for wrapping the exhaust. I guess we just need to chuck it back in. Definitely wear gloves for this, maybe even longer gloves or a long sleeve because my arms are pretty itchy already. But that is that. We've got our delete plate pretty well hidden under there. This side, you just got this big old knobbly bit there, but it doesn't look too bad. And most of it's as usual, dead battery. Yeah, done. So we'll just reinstall this and be done with it. I left this thing in the weirdest place. Anyway, gimbal, GoPro, bike. So, EXUP Delete is going well. It's been like a week or so, I think, thereabouts. And yeah, no, she's performing brilliantly. And what we're gonna do is just take her, left it out in the rain, obviously. Let's go for a scoot. Just updated all the maps and everything. We've done a couple of revisions on just our target air fuel ratios, and she's looking pretty good. Definitely a lot more fuel in a higher end. Mid-range, it's still quite patchy, so I think I'm going to go through there and kind of smooth it all out and see how that goes. But so far she is good. She pulls super hard through the whole rev range, and she's lifting in the front a lot more than usual. But yeah, let's jump on, see how she sounds, see how she pulls. So that's going to call it for this one. Very simple modification, essentially just removing that whole servo, set up the whole motor, comes out nice and simple, 4 bolts, stainless plate. If you get a grinder and a drill, you can probably do it. Confident you can do it. Audio wise, sound wise, the exhaust, it's a lot louder top end. I think maybe that might be because my servo was stuck closed, so my top end was definitely hurt by it. And now that it is fully open, I'm definitely getting the full benefit of a full flow exhaust, perhaps. But definitely notice the throttle response. It's a lot better. The little hesitation that it used to have changing down gears or partial throttle is now completely gone. I don't have that anymore. There is nothing there. It's just smooth, linear through the whole power band. It's good, it's fantastic. Yeah, the acceleration is phenomenal. It is considerably better. It does need a lot more fuel in certain sections. That's what the auto tune is telling me anyway. 13.2 is usually what I target top end with the auto tune, and needed a bit more fuel up top. Otherwise, nothing too crazy, and you'd probably honestly get away with it if you keep your stock O2 in and just the stock ECU. Now, temperature wise, pretty good. Coming to a stop at traffic lights and stuff, I still get the same thing with the fans having to kick on and everything, but there's just no airflow for it, so that makes sense. As soon as the bike is moving, and if I'm constantly moving, no issue at all. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. She cools down a lot faster, stays cooler longer, rides cooler in the mornings. It's fantastic. It stays real cool. I got to ride for an extra 1 or 2 minutes in the afternoon with full sunlight and everything, just to get the airflow, and then she comes back down to 79, 78 degrees. So exhaust wrap definitely works, and it looks good too. It looks fantastic under the bike. Haven't had any issues with the rain or anything like that. There's a little bit of steam on startup in the morning if it has been wet the night before, but other than that, no issue. So yeah, definitely worthwhile modifications, very cheap to do, less than $100 for both, easily less than $100, and a bit of your time. Good time to change the oil and stuff, having the fairings off, and yeah, would recommend, 10 out of 10. But like I say, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Any questions or anything, chuck them in the comments and I'll get back to you. And yeah, thank you for watching.